Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in, welcome on, and welcome back to another episode of the Direct Podcast. Everything you need to know about the universes you love. Breaking news episode covering some late Monday night activity within the Red Brand, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your host, Matt Erik, and I'm joined as always by my friend, co-host, box office correspondent, senior editor at thedirect.com, David Thompson. David, last night, Monday, Spider-Man 4 got the update we were looking for. If you listen to our episode that released just yesterday, we talked about the next step in production for the next Spidey film, and that would be getting a director, getting a head coach. The Hollywood Reporter has answered our prayers. The next director of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 4, Destin Daniel Cretton, the former director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. David Thompson, biggest Spider-Man fan I know. Instant reaction.
So excited. Honestly, just to get any kind of update. I've been saying this podcast for what seems like years at this point. I need official confirmation this movie's happening. Sony and Disney are working together, a director, a cast, anything and everything. And we finally got it on Destin Daniel Cretton. I think he's an excellent choice. I love how they're keeping within the brand. I think this is not a great look for a Shang-Chi 2, especially during the window that we might have thought Shang-Chi 2 could be released in. Could that character now appear in Spider-Man 4? Obviously, those odds are rising. For the action of it all, huge win. I love the fact that we are moving off of John Watts, who was, I think, more so on the character dialogue kind of comedic side of things and the heart as well. Whereas I thought in general that trilogy, while it's amazing, the action was a little bit lacking. With DDC here, the action's going to be phenomenal. I mean, I even just think about the Shang-Chi, the train sequence, right? And just all of that and like the interesting uses of slow-mo and just kind of the crazy like camera angles and moving around different objects and all just the different actions that were happening in that sequence. Putting Spider-Man in that space in New York City with this director, it seems like a total win.
Yeah, I think that there's mostly winners. There's a couple losers with this news. Destin Daniel Cretton, DDC, as he will be henceforth known as on this podcast. I think that he is one of, movies or sports. He is that up and coming new head coach or offensive coordinator that everyone loves. Nobody looked at Shang-Chi and thought that the direction was the issue. We all actually praised it, beyond repair. And
Yeah.
for him to get a big jump like Spider-Man 4, I think is a fitting thing. The progression feels right. It's about as exciting as it can get, as far as in-house directors, I think.
Yeah.
I think a Coogler would have been a weird move. I think, if a Russo brother came in, that would have been great. But also, what does that do to the core Spider-Man of it all? Destin Daniel Cretton, what he showed us in Shang-Chi, is incredibly exciting to see in the vehicle of Spider-Man. You mentioned the action. I think that the John Watts movies, I think that there is some great zoomed out big action sequences in those movies, specifically Far From Home and No Way Home.
Yeah.
Homecoming being what it is. Uh, but I think, the up close, hand to hand, high energy combat action was not there in that trilogy and obviously so present in Shang-Chi. So I think that is a fun addition to what the Spider-Man character is. A little closer camera as far as the action goes. Hopefully some more web slinging dynamics in there as opposed to these big grand sweeping web slinging scenes that we've gotten
Yeah.
from the Tom Holland trilogy. My biggest thing, and as you know, it's a character. It's really the first thing I look at when I look at this type of hire. I think that the chemistry, relationships, and development of the characters in Shang-Chi were all spot on, pitch perfect. I
Mhm.
I think that really carried the movie beyond just a great action flick, right? That's what I need in my Spider-Man movies. We've seen great, we've seen average, we've seen bad character development in the what is it? Eight Spider-Man movies we've gotten. We've seen highs, we've seen lows, right? I think that what we saw from Shang-Chi Destin Daniel Cretton knows how people need to talk to each other. They know how relationships need to work. They see, I can see a lot of things translating over there, and I'm really excited to see how they implement that in a story that is so wrapped up in the previous trilogy, just based on where we're at. Other parts of this report, DDC is coming back to direct another Marvel Sony venture. Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige both producing. I would love to go to lunch with those two. I think it'd be really fun. I think,
Fly on the wall would be a lot of
I
fun.
mean,
That's
they
for
have
sure.
to be just the best of friends at this point, right? You'd have to imagine they've been working together for 30 years, it feels like.
I feel like it's a lot of Amy throwing out 90 and Kevin being like, yeah, we'll see about that. We're going to talk to our team and we'll get back to you on that
No,
one.
they've been grinding for
I
decades,
think
these two,
Tom
man.
Hardy really should appear in the third act. And it's like,
About a post credit scene.
we'll talk about that,
About a
but
post credit.
maybe. Yeah.
Marvel and Sony coming back to produce this one together. Writers Chris McKenna and Erik Sommers are returning from the John Watts trilogy.
Huge.
Let's talk on that real quick. Let's focus on that. The problems with Shang-Chi. The reason it's not a perennial top 10 MCU movie. It third act gets away
Third
from
act
it a little
for
bit.
me. Yeah.
Third act gets away from it a little bit, right? I'd argue the third act is probably the best act of each Spider-Man movie so far. Like there's
Right. Yeah.
these two are tuned into this character, tuned into Tom Holland specifically. And I think that letting them focus so much on the story, knowing that the energy and the charisma is going to be there at DDC. McKenna and Sommers returning, David. What do you think that means for the plot? What do you think that means for the story? It doesn't mean anything yet. We just know it's going to be solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is huge. I think getting this character right and continuing the story that was set up that became a 1, 2, 3 part origin story at the end of the day is massive for bringing the writers back and having an integral part of this Spider-Man team, of this Spider-Man, right? This MCU Spider-Man still there with John Watts gone. I think replacing the director into a new direction, adding a little bit more spice potentially, just switching things up, but keeping kind of the fundamental, the backbone of it all for this Spider-Man character with the writing team. I think it's a massive win personally. Like, I would have been a little bit more concerned if it was going to be a different writing team where it's like, we don't know where this is going to go. And there's still concerns for sure. But I think in general, with all of this news that we're talking about, I think the idea of it being a multiverse movie, the odds are, I think, going down and down and down. It does feel a little bit more likely that we might get something a little bit more contained with this directing choice and with these writers coming back, even though the writers did a phenomenal job with a multiverse movie in No Way Home.
Right. And it's all about, what direction do they want to go to? And that comes down to, as everyone who's listening knows, and as you know very well, the Zendaya thing, right?
Yeah.
Is Zendaya in this movie? If so, how much? It's probably my most passionate comic book movie take at the moment. Is I want as little Zendaya in Spider-Man 4 as possible for no other reason than to hold the magic of No Way Home as long as we can. I understand at some point we gotta, get that resolution, right? I'll find you. I'll make you remember the smile at the end of the movie. It's
Yeah.
might be the best ending in comic book movie history, right? That resolution needs to come at some point. But I more than anything, I want one movie where we get to see the payoff of this new independent, broke as hell Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And they're in a deadline report. It says that both Holland and Zendaya are expected to close deals soon. So when I say that Zendaya should not be a part of this movie, the instant reaction from so many people is, just because she has a deal, it doesn't mean she's going to be a big part of the movie. It could be a cameo. It could be he sees her off in the distance, yada, yada, yada. David, as the business guy, after Zendaya just blew the doors off sci-fi with Dune 2, being one of the best rewrites from a book to movie anybody's ever seen. Do you sign Zendaya to a deal for a quick cameo, for a quick check-in on MJ? Is that how that works?
No, she's not going to be seen. She's not going to be like in the background, and all of a sudden the refocus shifts, and we just see Zendaya standing there on the streets of New York.
Which would be dope, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to happen. I do expect, like, the one thing that I think we might be missing from all of this, which could, I think, lend to it being a more interesting story. And by the way, at the end of the day, McKenna and Sommers as writers, they're very clever. They made the multiverse movie happen. They made No Way Home work. And a lot of that is, I think, for all the great things No Way Home does. I mean, one of my favorite films, literally ever, just for bringing those guys together. There are some holes in it, and that were kind of unavoidable, right? The wibbly wobbly woobly like multiverse of it all, right? It doesn't really make sense, but
The
now we're
wibbly, the wobbly, and the woobly, you said.
yeah, the woobly was the Doctor Strange part. Anyway,
Sure.
so bringing Zendaya back in, I think we might see a time jump of some sorts where it's not going to be picking like I mean, think about it. 2021. Now we're going to get a 2026 release. It's 5 years in between these movies. We're not picking up right after Spider-Man swinging through, New York at the end of No Way Home. There could be a jump, right? Like Zendaya, MJ, Ned, they could be done with college, still in college, right? Where are we going to be with that? Where are
Last
we going to
year
be with
too.
Peter
Yeah.
Parker? There could be like a thing where it's like maybe they're coming back home and like they've been away, so she's been off his mind, but now he's coming back. I'm just throwing ideas out here. But to answer your business question, no, I think I'm saying all this because I think we should be expecting her to be in the movie, her to be on the poster, and how that's going to work. Definitely a concern. I think will definitely be confusing to many when they see that news, that when they officially sign back on, she's officially, heading off to set, but we will see. I do think there could be a really cool situation. I don't know how it would work with obviously the mind wipe thing, some kind of like love triangle, bring in Gwen, bring in Black Cat or something like that. And we see something, some kind of, imagine like Tom or, Peter's moved on and then Zendaya gets her memory back somehow. The somehow is kind of the issue. And then we deal with those ramifications.
Right. The somehow is in comics one of the biggest fumbles in Marvel Comics history.
Right.
Like how they did this in the comics was awful. That the love triangle thing, I think that's kind of the best route. If Zendaya is going to be a big part of it, it's the first 30 to 45 minutes of the movie is Gwen Stacy and showing Gwen Stacy and showing Tom Holland finally moving on. And Gwen Stacy is one of the best character love interest in comic book movie history, right? So is MJ. But
Yeah.
and then the very MCU reveal would be Gwen Stacy, Gwen Stacy, Gwen Stacy. Oh, meet my roommate, MJ. And it's hi, nice to meet you, Peter Parker.
Right.
Um, but I think we're all thinking the same thing. As soon as Peter sees MJ again, who the hell is Gwen Stacy?
Right.
And that's not what I want from Gwen Stacy, right? And then
Yeah.
I just think I just personally, and I've said it ad nauseum, I think there's so many more interesting ways to do at least one movie with this brand new shiny Spider-Man that we have that we've never had before. We've never had the animated series Spider-Man in live action the way that we now have it with Tom Holland. Like
Mhm.
it's earned, it's trustworthy. If he has some high-tech shit going on, it's not going to be out of place at all. It's literally the perfect combination of everything we've wanted. But if Zendaya is going to be in the movie, I'm going to have very high concerns, but I had very high concerns going into No Way Home. I had
Right.
very high concerns going into Multiverse of Madness. Both of those concerns were not, none of them were realized.
Hmm.
My problems with Multiverse of Madness had nothing to do with the Reed Richards of it all,
Right.
Now, the biggest comp though in comic book movies is obviously Gamora and what they did bringing her back for Guardians 3 after they did essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't know who Quill is, this, that, the other. I don't believe that Spider-Man movies have the restraint to do I bet we were fun. Like what a moment at the end of Guardians 3 when we all realize they're not going to get back together. They're not going to just figure this out. I bet we were fun.
Hmm.
Like that is such an impactful restraint and such an impactful not doing the thing.
What a
And
moment.
it crushed. It absolutely crushed and it could not have worked better. I don't think that I don't know if it doesn't fit in a Spider-Man movie, but I just don't see a Spider-Man movie doing that. And even if they do, then why isn't Day in this movie? Like we have that. But David, to the
Yeah.
other loser of all of this, if there is one, you mentioned it earlier. It was kind of my first thought. If I'm being honest, I was excited, but also Shang-Chi too. Man, I mean, I don't know how you do it without DDC. I don't know why
Yeah.
you would do it without DDC. And given the schedule of everything, given where we're going, given the pounding on the door of mutants in the MCU, where do you see Shang-Chi 2 fitting, if at all, with DDC now being wrapped up in the biggest IP Marvel's ever had?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a different director. I don't see it though. Personally, what I think, so DDC is really busy. He has the live action Naruto movie he's making. Now he's doing Spider-Man. He's been doing the Wonder Man series for Disney Plus and Marvel, which, I think many people jump to. That's probably pretty good. If he now he's getting Spider-Man, when we're picking and choosing. He was
Really good
supposed
point.
to do Kang Dynasty when Kang Dynasty was a thing. And then he stepped down from that. They changed the direction. They changed the ship. Now we have the Russos and Downey doing Doomsday. So they've been wanting to, they have a lot of confidence in him at the end of the day. And I think it's really cool now he gets to do Spider-Man on Shang-Chi 2. Personally, where I'm sitting, I think Shang-Chi 2 might be a one of those 2027 movies that's on the docket that's post Secret Wars. Because we do have dates there and they kind of stand out where it's like, are these gonna be reboots? Are these gonna be kind of epilogues similar to Far From Home? I think a Shang-Chi 2 could fit really well in that kind of like tail end epilogue Far From Home kind of slot story wise. Will he even direct that? I don't know. I mean, DDC could now be doing a Spider-Man trilogy, right? If they keep the formula up. And that means that he's not going to do Shang-Chi 2. And at least in my opinion, I mean, unless busiest guy alive, right? That'd be unbelievable. He's going to do juggle Spider-Man while also continuing a Shang-Chi trilogy. This seems like an audible and kind of a shift, like a coaching change more than anything, where I think now Shang-Chi 2 is going to go in a different directorial direction and won't release until what I would assume 2027 at the earliest at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. It's gonna be one of those. Where was it? What happened? We all love Shang-Chi. It saved the box office, if people remember. And I just think that this is not good news for Shang-Chi 2 as much as it is good news for Spider-Man. So that's a little bit of the bittersweet, I think. But the biggest question is moving forward. What about Shang-Chi? What about Zendaya? And also, what is simply the direction of this movie? Are they going to keep it on that No Way Home path, or is this going to be supporting the Avengers around it? You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Which I don't think is a negative thing. If anybody can do that, it's Spider-Man.
right.
But it's just where we're at right now with this whole thing.
Yeah. My one final note on all this is the initial report says they are sprinting basically to begin production the beginning of 2025. Huge news if you think about it, by the way. They're not starting Doomsday production until the spring. So now it
Yeah.
seems like Spider-Man 4 could be filming before Doomsday. Where does that fit in? Where will it release? I still think July 2026, which I have been saying, is the most likely time for Spider-Man 4 to release. However, now a strong number 2, if they want to switch things up, is February 2026, which would be right before the release of Doomsday. Look out for that. Obviously, as the news comes out, I think in the coming months, we will get a release date for Spider-Man 4, because if they are actually beginning production, say in January, February of next year, we will know and they will have a target date for when this thing will release in theaters.
Well, make sure to check out the direct.com for the latest news on this and other topics within the universes you love. Make sure to check out the direct podcast for all those updates at length every Monday and feature segments later in the week. This has been our first breaking news episode, our first exclusive YouTube content, which is very exciting. Make sure to be a friend, tell a friend. For David, I'm Matt. Until then, we'll see you next time.